Hey, welcome back. In this section, we're going to look at screeding, getting ready to start to lay some pavers. This is one of the most satisfying parts when you actually have moved all the main bulk of gravel, the site's starting to get closer to that finished product, and we can start to actually get some sand on the ground and get ready to lay. Some details you might have to take care of, so irrigation. This line was kind of hiding in that spot, so I flashed up the valve and figured out that I needed to cap that off right away. So making sure that's done so nothing's going to mess up our final patio. Doesn't hurt to double check that. If you have to call an irrigation tech, then so be it, but hopefully you can do that yourself as well. And we're going to rough in some river rock for the detail around the gravel patio there and the beds on the side. Wanted to make sure that everything was sort of free draining to the perimeter drain as much as possible. We have our sleeve there with some irrigation running through. And then to finish that first day off, I actually just started piling up some sand and re-sprayed out some layout quickly as well. Getting ready for the next day to actually screed some sand in the morning and then lay pavers in the afternoon. So I left kind of channels in my piles of sand so that I could lay my bars down. These are 1-inch square tubing. I find the square ones are really nice. They don't really move around at all. Just a little bit more solid. And I'm just going to double check quickly if there's any minor discrepancies in the heights with my level, just to make sure that it's all where it needs to be as far as my finished heights and slopes go. And just like we did with the road base layer, we're going to start from the far end away from our material pile. And we're just going to spread out the sand across the whole width of the patio and start to pull it back with the same screed board, really nice flat board. Really nice and solid down onto the bars. So I always like to keep pressure down on my hands as close to the bars as possible. Even if I'm screeding off to the side like that, I'm trying to keep pressure down in the middle more than on the edges. So as soon as I start to push down on the farther edge, it's going to dig in a little bit. So you might have to double back and sort of go over your screed a couple times as you go. But always double check that you're not digging in on one side. And leave some sort of marks and divots in spots if that's the case. So really taking your time, doubling back over yourself, making sure that you're full up right to the edges. And I'm actually going to fill in some of the troughs where I'm pulling the bars back as I go as well. You can do that after too, but sometimes it's nice just to get it done right away. Just using a flat trowel to smooth the sand like a mini screed in those bars, the channels where the bars were after I dragged them back a bit. And just work our way across the patio this way. You don't want to have to pull too much material with the screed board. So it's nice to have someone to work with you to actually pull some sand back once it starts to pile up. If you have a little bit too much, you definitely want to move it back before you start to pull again. Otherwise you're going to be really working too hard with the screed board trying to pull a lot of material. So be careful of the width of how you set your bars as well. So ideally you can reach both edges of the patio without the problem that I'm having here, which is one end of the board is actually just getting past the bar and digging in if I go to the far edge. So it's just about 4 or 5 inches off there. So important to note to set up your bars to the exact width that you need so you can reach both sides without coming off of the bar to do it. So you can see just a really nice flat surface there that we're creating. So anytime you slide the bars back, double check your levels. So it's going to be level parallel to the house, right? So that makes it easy. Doesn't hurt to just give it a quick check. And you can even revert back to the string line height or the step there as well, just to really confirm. But anytime we move our bars, we want to double check that it's not just sitting up or down into the road base layer too much. So working up to anything existing, so this step that we had already built, we have to be really careful with our finished height to make sure that it's going to match up perfectly. Sometimes I end up actually just tweaking it a bit by hand And we want to get that paver to sit about just under a 1/4 inch above that existing surface. And then we're going to compact it really well, and it's going to line up pretty nice and flush. If anything, we want it sitting just a hair taller, so that if it does settle over a long period of time, it's going to settle down to level. And then in this little hard to reach area, I'm actually just going to use my level to just finish off some screeding here. You might have to do this more so, it's a little bit trickier, but you might have to do it more so for some walkways and sort of awkward transition areas. So just be aware of that. You might want to get used to using your level for that. And we're going to fill in those trenches where the bars were. And just get it all super flat and tweaked, ready to go to lay some pavers down, so that we can just focus on laying the pavers, not having to adjust our screed layer. Actually looks pretty cool with the road base showing there. And so once again, the idea is that we're getting exactly 1 inch thickness of sand. So any settling is going to be even, and it's going to create a super flat, nice surface for our pavers. So here's a closer look at sort of touching up any edges to get that final height to match up perfectly. So I'm just going to use a trowel, basically just skimming the tiniest part off of that sand to get it to sit right about there, so that it's going to compact perfectly down to that height. All right, on to part 4 in the next video. Let's check out some patio laying.